Good morning. It is CBT day for me, and what a beautiful day it is. I think I've struck it lucky today, to be honest, because this week the weather has been absolutely appalling. So I think this is a rare sunny day this week. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting my CBT out of the way today. I'm a little bit nervous, if I'm honest with you. I don't normally get nervous about things like this, but I literally, because I've never ridden a motorbike before, we'll have to just see how it goes. I'll try and get some footage today. I don't know how much I'll be able to film. I won't film anything of me on the bike, but anything other than that, I'll try and get some footage just to let you guys know what happens. But I'm going to get there a bit early and have a little chat with the guy Paul who runs it, and you know, see how much I'll be able to film and whatnot. So yeah, let's get there. Yeah, a bit nervous. Okay, so I've arrived at the centre now, and I've got checked in and all that kind of stuff. I've had to read a number plate on the wall, which was no problem at all. I've opted for the geared bike today. I realise you can do just a twist and go one, but I can actually just ride a 50cc twist and go anyway on my driving licence, because I've got grandad rights or whatever they're called. But today I'm doing a geared one just so I can get a geared bike. Anyway, just got to get my helmet out of the car, which I've got just here, and some gloves, and pick out some suitable shades and get to it. I've yet to ask how much I can film, so we'll see what goes on there. Okay, that's the morning of my CBT done. We've covered a few basics. When we first got here this morning, we all checked in and gave our driving instructors and all that kind of stuff, and then basically, you know, they sort of asked what experience you had and all that kind of stuff, and then got down to the nitty gritty. So they covered all the sort of things like all the clothing that you'll wear, and you know, why you wear each piece, and what it has to, like what standards and all this it has to come up to in order for you to be able to use it. Interestingly, they did mention that the only piece, I think they said the only piece of actual protective clothing that you must wear on a motorcycle in the UK is a helmet, and everything else is just you know, a free-for-all. But you know, they strongly advise that you wear some products with armour in, which is what my motorcycle clothing has anyway. So that was good. Yeah, and really you know, good to sort of get the basics down, even though, you know, you might think you know a lot of this stuff. It's good to hear it firsthand from someone, and just be sure before you get onto a motorcycle. Once that was dealt with, we went outside into this compound here. It's like a school playground type deal, and the instructor basically took us around a 125. We got Honda, what a CB125Fs we're all using here. So he took us around, showed us all of the controls that you've got on the vehicle, how to use the indicators, where the clutch is, where the brake is, you know, how to change gear, you know, with the gear lever and all that type of stuff. Indicators, did I mention that? So that was all good. You know, all of these things you'd have on a car. So if you drive a car, you know a lot of this stuff already, but you might not know where it is. You know, even like the clutch, it looks like a brake lever, but it's not. You pull the lever and it disengages the clutch. So that was good to know as well. And then, you know, covered basics like you know, doing maintenance checks, so checking the oil, checking the chain, checking that the tires are okay, you know, and you should be doing these checks sort of once a week, just to check that it's all in order before you get going. Then this is all in one stint, by the way. We've had no breaks in between this. We've gone on to part what they must be, part C, which is where we actually get onto the motorcycles and turn them on, and get riding around a car park. Now, first of all, we rode round in like they call it a quadrant, so it's basically like an oval round this this car park, which was all good fun, and it's very, very taxing on your brain to start off with, figuring out what your hands are doing and what your feet have got to do and all that kind of stuff, and there's a lot going through your brain, but it comes to you very quickly, and before long you just sort of you do a lot of it without thinking, the same as driving a car, but you're moving different parts of your body basically. So we've gone on to do that. We've gone on to do some slow riding techniques, so where you're like cruising on the rear brake, but keeping the throttle up, you know, keeping the revs up and all that, and doing low speed maneuvers without putting your feet down, so you've got your feet on all the time but moving very slowly, which was good fun and pretty hard actually, but again, it all sort of comes into your brain without you even thinking about it by the time you've moved on to the next piece. So we've also covered slow U-turns in the road. We've also done some emergency stops and all that sort of stuff. And before we've just finished that session, they've taken us onto the car park on foot, where they've got like a mini road system set up with some junctions and all that, and they're just talking about road positioning and all that sort of stuff. So when you do go onto the road later on, there's 2 more parts. There's A, B, C, D and E. We've done A, B and C so far, and when you get onto part D in the classroom and then part E on the road later, you need to know all this stuff on the end of part C, which is about junctions and road placement and positioning and all that sort of stuff, and how to be as safe as possible, which is really why we're here, I guess. Anyway, it's a nice bike. We will be having a little lunch break just now, so I'm just going to grab some sarnies and all that kind of stuff, and then after lunch we will be jumping into the classroom to sort of cover what to expect on the part E, I think, which is where the road test comes in. So that'll be quite good fun. One thing I will say, you have to wear a lot of protective gear when you're doing all of this, obviously, and today it's not even super hot. It's 18 degrees according to my car, but with the jacket on and everything else, it is absolutely sweltering. So it's nice to have a little breather and take the hat off and let that dry out a little bit. But yeah, all good so far. It's a great experience. The instructors are really cool, and if you've got any questions, don't be afraid to ask, because they're constantly asking if you've got a question and whatnot, if you're not sure about anything. Anyway, I need to get a sarnie down my neck quickly, and later on it's going to be back in this little classroom just over here and do a bit more of the theory stuff, I guess. Not a theory test, but sort of telling you how it's going to be later on the drive out. So I don't think I'll be able to film any of that. I've not been able to film any of the bike work so far, which is fair enough. And you know, I'll link to a video somewhere up here where you can watch what goes on a CBT. But for now, dinner time, and I look forward to a bit of riding later. So I might not be able to get a chance to speak to you before then, but I shall be back in a bit. Okay, so after I did my CBT there on Saturday, once I got all done in their sort of little trailer unit, I was absolutely shattered, and I just felt like I needed to get out of the car park because I wanted to lock up and stuff. So I didn't manage to get my little bit of filming done after the test, but I am pleased to announce that I did actually get my CBT certificate, which I've yet to actually have a read through, but I'm sure there's some important information on there, so I'm really pleased about that. One thing I will say, I mentioned, like, when I came out of the classroom after finishing it, I was absolutely knackered. It is quite an intense day. I mean, bearing in mind, when I got there in the morning, I'd literally never ridden a motorbike myself or anything like that. I didn't know really about all the controls and all that sort of stuff, and come the end of the day, I'm doing 60 miles an hour down a country lane, you know, which is just is bonkers, really. So literally on that day, I did feel like I went from 0 to hero. It was just madness, but what an excellent experience. I wouldn't say it's difficult, but you certainly have to apply your brain to it, you know, and you know, there's a lot to think about. Because you know, I'm a confident car driver. I get in the car, change gear, do all this stuff, and I end up where I'm going without even thinking about it. And I guess that's the same for people that have ridden motorbikes for a long time. But I've never changed gear with my hand. I've never accelerated with my hand. I've never changed gear with my left foot. Well, I have really, but that's not the clutch. That's just the gear selector. And the rear brake, you know, being on the other foot, and one brake being with your hand, it's all, and they're both on the same side of the bike. It's all a little bit alien. Well, it was really alien to me, of course. But the teachers at Pit Stop Training in Newport here on the Isle of Wight did a fantastic job. They sit you down, explain all about it and all that kind of stuff, and just make you feel confident before you go out on the ride at the end, which must be about 2 hours long, which might seem daunting, but it don't half go quick. Anyway, there was 5 parts to this CBT, and I'm just going to run through a few of the bits about what happened. It's worth noting, on my CBT there were 6 people booked on it, and at the end of the day only 3 people completed it. The reason being, I mean, one of the guys who turned up was like a young lad. He was just he was 17, I believe, and you know, he obviously wanted to ride around on a scooter to get to college or whatnot. We went through part of element A with regards to some safety and some clothing and all that sort of stuff, and the guy actually turned up with a pair of tracky bottoms on, which obviously you can't do your CBT in that. It's no good. You need to have some resilient clothing. So his mum was dispatched to, his mum dropped him off in the car in the morning, and she was dispatched to go and get him some jeans. Anyway, when she came back with said jeans, the guy disappeared and we never saw him again. So I don't know quite what was going on there, but he decided it wasn't for him on the day. So I hope you manage to do it next time, buddy. Harvey, I think your name was. Anyway, there was another young girl called Harriet, nice girl, but she had zero driving experience. She again wanted to have a little scooter just to zip about on, and you know, bit of freedom, I guess. But having never ever ridden any kind of vehicle, when it got to it, you know, doing all the practical stuff around the car park and all that, we all thought that she was doing a great job, but when it came to it, she decided she didn't want to go and do the road test at the end, which is fair enough, but she did everything up until that point, so she's free just to go back and do that last test part, you know, if she feels up to it and fancies it. So good luck, Harriet. Hope you managed to get onto that. And the next one was a little bit weird, to be honest with you. You got started a little bit late, because a guy turned up, you know, a little bit late, whatever. I won't mention his name because, well, it'll become clear in a second. When the guy turned up, there was a few sort of, I don't really know how to say this, putting it nicely, some learning difficulties, okay? You know, it wasn't like all the other people that had turned up for it, and, you know, and really, when we got onto the bikes and going around the car park and doing all these things, it came clear very quickly that, you know, it was going to be hard work for the instructors and all that stuff. But they persevered with the guy and got him going as much as possible. Eventually, they stuck him on a twist and go scooter because, you know, I think the gears were proving a little bit too much for him. Poor bloke. But anyway, the long and short, they decided it wasn't safe for him to go out on the road, so they've sent him away. I don't know what happened after that, so whether he goes back and completes it with a bit more training, I don't know. But if that's you and you're watching this, good luck, and I hope you manage to get on a bike. I know you've already got yourself a couple of motorbikes already, so it'd be a real shame if you can't do it. But I feel, and the other guys actually on the course felt that that was the right decision on the day, because yeah, the guy just definitely wasn't up to the standard that you need to be to go on the public road on a vehicle that you've got no experience on. So best of luck to you, buddy. Hope you manage to get it sorted. The CBT is in 5 parts. You've got elements A, B, C, D and E. When you first get there, basically I'm going to run through what we did and give you a little bit of an insight into what. It might be a little bit boring, so you know, you can have this on sound in the background whilst you're grooving on the internet or whatever. But when we got there at 8:45 for it to start at 9 a.m. First thing we did was get in, and we had to give them our driving licence, and that stayed with them until the end of the day. After that was done, they obviously checked that payment had been made, which I did in advance anyway. And then we did an eyesight test. So they've got a number plate. It's meant to be, I think, 20.5 metres away on a fence across the car park. And basically, you just had to read it. And funnily enough, one of the lad with the jeans issue, when they asked him to read it, he read it completely wrong, and it turns out he was reading it off of one of the motorbikes in the car park rather than the one he was meant to be reading. So that was a bit of a laugh, but he got it in the end. So once that was all done, the instructors ran through what the aim of the CBT is and what to expect throughout the day, and basically what the aim of you actually doing it is to be safe and have a fairly competent level of riding ability come the end of the day. They also spent a little bit of time talking about equipment and clothing, you know, what all different sort of materials and how they benefit you on the riding. Like a pair of tracky bottoms, absolutely zero helped you in the event of a spill, but bike leathers, tons of protection. Not going to stop you getting broken limbs and stuff, but certainly will keep your skin intact. Much better than a pair of tracksuit bottoms. So that was quite interesting going through all that. And there was lots of stats and facts and stuff they threw at us as well. So that was really handy. And that concluded element B. That first part was all in the classroom. We then went outside, and it says here on this little sheet that they've ticked off, rules of the site. It just basically was like, you know, do as you're told, make sure you listen, and, you know, always listen to your instructor and all that kind of stuff. Just basic, common knowledge, really. We then went over the motorbike. The instructor went all around it, asking us all what the parts of the bike are, and everyone have their input and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I generally knew where everything was. I just didn't really know how it all worked together. But that was good. And The use of stands, yeah, so we practiced on the stands. I mean, motorbikes are quite heavy actually. It's much heavier than a push bike, obviously, because of the motor and all that sort of jazz. So there's two different types of stands. You've got the side stand and the centre stand. I think that's what it's called anyway. The side stand you just use in general use, but you put it onto the centre stand if you were, you know, resting the bike up for any period of time, really. So that was all interesting. It's easy to do, but there's a knack to it, so it's definitely helpful for the instructors to go over that stuff with you. Then we had to take the bikes for a walk, and you might think, well, why are you doing that? Well, bikes don't have reverse gear, so it was handy just to sort of get to grips with manoeuvring the bike whilst it's not under power, and how to make it stop and all that stuff. So we had to have a little walk around some cones, and then we had to stop the bike kind of on a line that was painted onto the car park. So that was all easy, but a lot of people drop bikes and stuff because they just sort of don't anticipate how heavy it's going to be once it starts going. You know, I'm pretty hefty and pretty strong, so it's not a bother for me. But, you know, like a young lass, you know, a young 16, 17-year-old girl, probably going to struggle with things like that. So keep it leaning in towards you a little bit. That was a good little tip I took away from that. And then we obviously brake in using the front brake just to stop it where you want it to. We then went through some basic safety checks. We went over the bike, checking the tyres, checking the chain, checking the brakes periodically, you know, for just all pre-ride and that kind of stuff. And that again was insightful because I ride a mountain bike, and until something breaks, I don't even bother looking at it. I just use it until it's broke and then I change it. But obviously preventative measures could help me out there, and it certainly would on a motorcycle. And then we went through stopping and starting the engine, just checking that it's in neutral before you start it and all that kind of stuff, and how to press a little button to start it, and how to operate the key in the ignition and all that sort of stuff. Then we actually got onto the motorcycle for Element C and had quite a long session in the car park, actually, just practicing various manoeuvres, each one getting a little bit more difficult than the previous. And like, imagine if on the first stint you might just be operating a brake, the next one you'd operate the accelerator and the brake, the next one you'd operate the accelerator, the clutch and the brake, and all that kind of stuff. So each time it's getting a little bit more difficult, but each time, because you've got more experience of doing the brake, then you don't even think about that so much. You're just worrying about the other two bits, and it sort of builds up until you're whizzing around the car park, changing gear, you know, just practicing basically. So that was all good. The first thing we did was ride in a straight line and stop. This was easy. They explained what sort of order you do the throttle, the clutch, the gears and all that sort of stuff when you're pulling away and also when you're stopping. So that was all explained fully. I knew how it works anyway, really, because of being a car driver, but all the controls are different. So it's really good to watch them and take it on board and see what's going on. Once we could do that, we did large circles, stopping at a line, using the front and the rear brake this time. So we basically had like an oval, we went around it and there was a line, like a start line, right around it, stop. Right around it, stop. Just keep going, because this is what you do every day on a motorbike. You come to a junction, you stop, and then you pull away. Another junction, roundabout, whatever, stop, and then pull away again. So that was all good practice to get your hands used to what you're meant to be doing there. Rear observation, after we had that mastered, or we could do it, we then moved on to observation and stuff. Now, anyone who rides a push bike will know that when you're pulling away or changing a lane or going across the road or whatever, you always look behind you and just check that no one's coming up and going to knock you over. I do that instinctively anyway, because I don't want to die on my push bike. But a lot of people think, well, those people are behind me, I'm not worrying what they're doing, let's just crack on. But lifesavers can really save your life. So it was good to do that and really sort of instill it in your brain before we went out onto the road and did that. Riding slowly, the guy was saying a lot of people really struggle with this because you have to, it's a bit weird, you wouldn't do it in a car because motorcycles have got wet clutches. They're designed basically to have like the clutch ridden, you know, so what we were instructed to do was ride around at about 3,000 revs, have the clutch not quite engaged and control our speed with the rear brake. So if you're filtering in traffic or pulling up to a junction and just waiting for it to be clear, this is what you do, because at all costs really, once you stop and put your foot down on a bike, you know, then you've got to start all over again. Much easier just to keep your feet on, make sure everything's good, and then bomb it again. So that was good and hard work. We went round in like a figure of 8 round some cones. So that was, I didn't really find that hard work, to be honest with you. The low speed manoeuvring I'm quite good at, because I do like, you know, mountain biking, and I can do a track stand on my mountain bike anyway. I can literally just stand there, not moving anywhere, and maintain my balance. So I've got good balance for the slow riding, but it's a bit weird going slow and leaning into the turn and all that sort of stuff. Felt a little bit weird because the bike's quite heavy, obviously, but we all managed to do that. Then they covered us at doing a U-turn in the road. In this car park, it was like a school football pitch, concrete, you know, just like a concrete football pitch. But they actually had lines and junctions all painted onto the surface. So straight down the middle of it, you had like a single carriage road, one going that way, one lane going that way. And basically what we had to do was start on one side, one curb, imaginary curb on one side, pull away, obviously doing all your lifesavers and all that kind of stuff, do a slow controlled turn in the road so you're facing back the other way and end up next to the curb, imaginary curb on the other side of the car park. We practiced that a few times and no one seemed to have any issues with that. I think a couple of people stalled. I might have even stalled it, actually, to be honest. I definitely stalled it at some stage during this whole bout in the car park, but I can't remember when. So yeah, figure of riding slowly, U-turn, and then we covered changing gear. I've sort of jumped the gun a bit. We didn't do any of that because all the other stuff previously was done in like first gear. Then we went through changing gear and we whizzed around the car park, and they were just like, they would walk alongside you at what speed they wanted you to ride to check you could have the low speed. And then also if they like sort of told you to gun it, they wanted to see you go a bit faster and change up a gear and all that kind of stuff. And you have to think quite a lot in your head before you're changing the gear, because you've got to slow down, let go of the throttle, pull the clutch in, change gear, and then do the reverse to get going again. I mean, a competent motorcyclist will do that in a split second, but when you've got to think about it and then also turn and think about doing a brake, you know, it's a lot going through your head. But we all managed that. Then we did an emergency stop. They don't want to see you doing a skid with the rear brake, you know, so they want to see you come to a stop. They sort of usher you to get up into at least second gear and ride towards them, not directly towards them, but in a general direction. And then they'll go stop, and then they want you to see you come to a controlled stop without doing a massive skid or anything like that. So again, we all managed that. And then system of safe motorcycle control. OSM PSL, I don't really know what that means, to be honest with you, but we must have done it because there's a tick. Then we had an opportunity to grab some lunch, which was nice because it's blooming hard work. And by this time I was starving. I get up early and come to work, so I was absolutely famished. So it was nice to have 25 minutes or so just to grab a little bit of lunch. I didn't have enough with me, to be honest. We didn't have much stocks of food at home on Saturday morning, and by the time I got out of the house I didn't have chance to get to a supermarket or anywhere to go and grab a little bit more food. So do take plenty of food with you, because it is quite a long day actually, and hard work, so a bit of brain food would not go amiss. So after that we were back in the classroom, which might seem a little bit weird because we'd already done that, gone out and done a little bit of practical stuff, but it was good to sort of change gear in your brain a little bit, go and have a little seat in the office for half an hour or whatever, and we run through element D. So we are getting there. So element D consists of legal requirements. You know, this covered basically how old you can be, riding what bike and what you need license wise and all this, that and the other. So to just make sure you're not doing anything illegal on your bike before you've actually got your license and all that kind of stuff. We spent some time going through the highway code, talking about road markings. They had some little plaques with some road signs and stuff on, sort of asking you what the different shapes meant and what this, that and the other was. You know, the guy said, this guy knows his shit. So I was pleased about that, because I knew all the road signs and all that stuff, having been driving for over 20 years anyway. So once that was covered, obviously being on a motorcycle, you're a sitting duck really in traffic. So we covered all things like, you know, who has a hierarchy on the road, like pedestrians, cyclists, horse riders, motorcyclists, cars, vans, trucks, tractors and all that kind of stuff. It goes in sort of size of vulnerability. So being on a motorcyclist, you're towards the bottom of that. So we covered a lot of stuff like wearing high visibility clothing so you can be well spotted on the road. A lot of people who have an accident or pull out in front of a motorcyclist will say, I just didn't see them. So it wouldn't do you any harm to make sure you've got a high vis jacket on, lots of reflective stuff and all that kind of stuff, which is quite handy because I've got my own reflective printing company. So when I do get a bike eventually, it will be lit up like a Christmas tree, hopefully. So that is all good. Conspicuity. Road surfaces, just covering, you know, like riding on sand and gravel, of which we did actually do on a road test later on, just explaining that, you know, when you're riding on sand, you've got a different level of grip totally compared to riding on like a normal road. Obviously keeping an eye out for oil spills, riding in the rain, all of these things can affect how your tyres meet the road, so and grip the road. So it's definitely important to have that under your belt, and just think about what you're riding on. Okay, I did actually watch a YouTube video of someone doing their CBT, and they were going round a roundabout or such like, and there was a dark patch in the middle of the road, and the guy or the lady doing their CBT, the back wheel slipped out from underneath them and they ended up on the floor like a sack of spuds. So definitely keep your eyes peeled on that road surface. It will tell you a lot about which way up you're going to stand. Oh God, I could do with a drink. So this is a bit dull, isn't it, for you? But this will tell you exactly what to expect on your CBT. Okay, I'll cover a little bit about weather conditions. Don't drive when it's icy, because that's asking for trouble. Take the car if you've got one. If not, get on a bus or let someone else take the risk. Ride a motorbike when it's icy or frosty, not a good idea. You can ride in the fog and all that kind of stuff. Just take precautions like driving slowly, not driving with your main beam on, because it just dazzles other people, and you can actually see less in the fog when you've got your main beam on. So just stick your normal beam on, which is on automatically anyway on the bike that I rode. I think it might be a legal requirement, but I do see people riding motorbikes with no lights on the front, and they're probably the ones that are getting hit. Drink, drugs and illness. Obviously, if you're taking like medication that makes you feel drowsy, not a good idea to get on a motorcycle, because it does take a lot of concentration, whether you think it does or not when you're on it. You know, like I say, when I'm driving, I don't even notice I'm doing it. It just happens and I end up where I'm going. But if I've taken some tablets for a headache and they make you drowsy, or antihistamines for pollen, what is it? What do you call it? Hay fever. They can all make you drowsy, which is not good on a motorbike. So don't do that. Attitude. This covered courtesy and consideration versus aggression. The guy was saying basically, look, you know, when you get on a motorbike and you're a bit hot-headed, not a good idea. If you've had an argument with your partner or whatever, if you jump in your car, you would get in it, you know, slam the door, get in it, and then speed off. Having the same attitude on a motorbike will get you knocked off or killed or something like that. You know, you're a vulnerable person on a motorcycle. So we just had a little bit of a chat about making sure you're in the right frame of mind before you get on your bike and all that sort of stuff. We went over effective rear observation. Basically, you know, doing your lifesavers, checking your mirrors, mirror signal maneuver. They called it something else, can't remember what it was. Okay, that's what this OSM PSL was. That was observation, signal, manoeuvre. So observation, you do a left lifesaver, look in your mirror, look in the other mirror, a right lifesaver, signal, and then do your manoeuvre. Okay, that's what all that was about. Effective rear observation, I just covered that. Hazard perception. A lot of thing about riding a bike is planning in advance. So it's no point just concentrating on the actual piece of road that you're riding on at the moment. What's going on at that junction down there? Is that lady about to walk out in front of you with that pram? You know, what's this car doing that's got foreign plates on? Have they seen you? What are they up to? Because a lot of, you know, all these things come into consideration. Defensive riding and road positioning. We spent a lot of time actually in the car park slightly after this, actually, which I'll cover in a second. Basically, it's sort of looking at road positioning on their road that they had painted on the car park, about where you should be at what time, and when you're coming up to junctions, are you on the left, are you in the middle, are you on the right, and all that kind of stuff. So that was all good to learn, and different really to when you're in a car. Okay, because again, being on a bike, you're more vulnerable, and what you want to be doing at junctions and stuff is blocking other people so that they know that what your intentions are to go, rather than is it you going or am I going or whatever. No one knows what's happening. Block them so they can't go. So that was quite good today. Adequate clearance, just not getting too near to stuff. And the correct use of speed, this is the same as in a car really, but you do plan ahead. On a motorbike, sorry, in a car, you can go from 5th gear to 1st gear, or 5th gear to 2nd gear, or whatever. Can't do that on a motorbike. You have to go through sequentially. So if you're in 5th gear and you're coming up to a roundabout, you have to go 5th gear, 4th gear, 3rd gear, 2nd gear. So again, always thinking ahead about what's going on in the future, you know, 10 seconds down the road, and planning for it, so you can be ready for it when it happens. It also says we covered the use of radios. We didn't cover anything about the use of radios, to be honest. We just we shoved a little earpiece inside my crash helmet, which I took my own one, and basically that's all you had to do. You can't talk, you can just hear what they're saying. So that was all checked over, but there was no instructions. You just listen. That's simply all there was. So then we got onto the actual bicycle road test. So we all sat on the bikes. I went in a group of 2. Like I said, 3 finished. A lady, Teresa, she went off with one instructor, and a guy called Eugene and myself went out with another instructor, Charlie, I'm pretty sure his name was. So thanks, Charlie. Anyway, so we went out together. Teresa went off with the other guy, other instructor, a couple of minutes before us, and basically where the training centre was is on like a housing estate. So we spent, you know, 10 minutes or so just going up and doing left turns at junctions, right turns at junctions, left turn, right turn, you know, blah blah blah. And then we went along, and they obviously told us earlier in the day about roundabouts. Don't go over it, go around it, basically, because when it comes later on and you come to your main test, they can fail you if you go on any part of a painted roundabout. So if you've got a mini roundabout, don't go over it, go around it. Anyway, and then did a lot of being on a housing estate, there was a lot of parked cars, so it was great for our lifesaver training, and then pulling out for parked cars. We were told that we don't need to indicate to go past a parked car because there's so many of them, you'd constantly have your indicator on. So we didn't have to do that, just a lifesaver, check your gears and all that sort of stuff, and then just crack on. If there's no hazard. And then overtaking, we didn't really do any overtaking. I mean, when we were doing the actual road test, we didn't overtake any cars or anything like that. It's very responsible, so we didn't have to worry about that. But it's the same as in a car. If it's safe to do so, crack on. If it's not, wait a minute. Anyway, okay. So then we went through more taxing stuff. So we went through some traffic lights, pedestrian crossings, hills and bends and all that kind of stuff. And we went through a little jolly down the dual carriageway. On the Isle of Wight, we've got about 300 or 400 metres or something like that of dual carriageway, and that is it. So that is your only opportunity to have a go at that. So we've done a little bit of that as well. A couple of times we went on a dual carriageway. So that was all good. We rode a little bit further out onto an industrial estate, and we did our emergency stops and U-turns in the road. On my first U-turn, that was fine actually, but when I did my first emergency stop, I don't know what was going on, because I'd done like half a dozen of these in the car park before, but you get nervous and stuff and your brain's all over the place. And on the first one, I didn't let go of the throttle, and when I came to a stop, I must have let go of the clutch and the bike stalled actually. So I didn't do great on that one at all, and it felt awful, because instantly you think, oh man, I really ballsed this up, but you haven't. It's training, not a test. So you get another go and all that sort of stuff, and I just nailed it on the second go because I knew what I was doing. I just messed up on the first one, so that was all good. Then we went around lots of country lanes and down the seafront and going hard on the island near Cowes and that, and just on a nice little country lane ride. And one thing I did find a little bit weird, like I said earlier, in the morning, zero experience. The next thing, I'm doing 60 miles an hour on a country road, and it's just bonkers, I thought, but I was absolutely loving it, because it was nice to get away from the constantly changing gears and going around little switchbacks and hill starts and all that kind of stuff. And basically, open road, get into 5th gear, open the throttle, you know, whatever, and just get up to speed. And it was great whizzing along at 60 miles an hour with bees smacking into my crash helmet. So definitely have a visor or some sunglasses. You don't want to get a bee in the eye, trust me. That would hurt. And then before you knew it, we pulled over in a gravel car park, you know, one of these things about the different road surfaces. Once we pulled up in a gravel car park, the guy gave us a drink of water and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, basically that was the different road surface bit. Oh yeah, well, that's what I wanted to say. When we got into this car park, the guy said, how long do you think we've been riding for? And Eugene and I both said probably about half an hour. We'd actually been gone for an hour and 20 minutes. The time flies. So I was quite relieved, actually, to be honest with you, because I was thinking, well, it's only going to go on for another 40 minutes, which is brilliant. Because, you know, with these things, you just want to get them over and done with and get a bit of paper in your hand. So that was my thought there, but I was actually loving the riding. It was brilliant, brilliant fun, and nice to do it in a safe environment. So then we just went around, went through the town in Newport a couple of times we went through, actually. Did a couple of hill starts with traffic lights, and it was really overall a good sort of indication of the sort of riding I'd be doing over here. A little bit more towny, really, because my idea would be to commute to work, and it's both sort of countryside to countryside, rather than going through a town. But you will do that at some stage, so that was good. And before we knew it, we were back in the car park, where we switched the bikes off, went back into the cabin, and you know, Teresa was getting her CBT certificate as we walked in, so well done, Teresa, if you're watching. And then we just sat there, and Eugene and I spoke amongst ourselves for a few minutes, and basically he got his certificate and then I got my certificate, and then they were quite keen to get off, so I got out of the car park, hence not doing the video like this part on the day. So I have now finished my CBT training. It is valid for 2 years until I either pass my full licence test, which will be, that's my aim. But if you don't, you just want to ride a 125 with L plates on, then you know, I have to renew it in 2 years. I just have to do exactly the same as I did on Saturday again. So my next mission is to find myself a push bike, not a push bike, a motorbike. I'm just obviously going to get a 125. It's a little bit different where I live, being on the Isle of Wight, because we're on an island and you can't just nip a, you know, put a 100-mile radius to go and look at something, because that involves a, you know, a day out basically on a ferry messing about. So plenty of people, probably statistically actually, on the Isle of Wight ride motorcycles than they do on the mainland. In actual fact, it's got the highest pass rate for the full licence, I believe, on the Isle of Wight of anywhere in the UK. So there was a lot of people riding motorbikes here. So I'm going to be looking for a 125. I haven't really got a budget, but I don't want to spend loads of money, because I'll probably sell it after a bit, you know, when I get my licence and get a bigger bike or whatever. But I don't want anything crap. I don't want one of these Chinese ones. So I'll be looking for a Honda, probably, I think we went on a CB 125F for my thing. And whilst I don't like the look of them, it was really good for learning on. So that's probably something I'll go like that. And they come up all the time over here. Lots of people ride bikes. Lots of people have their 125 and then decide to do the full test. So they crack on and get their full licence and need to sell the 125. So there's a vibrant market for that kind of thing over here. So that is my next step, to get myself a bike. Thank you for watching. Hope you found this enlightening, I guess. I know it's been a long video, but it's a long day and a lot to squeeze in, but I am pleased I have got my certificate. If you're on the same journey as me, don't forget to leave a comment and let me know where you're doing your test and whatnot, and don't forget to hit subscribe. There's a button just here, so if you're still watching this, you've got to press that button. Okay, I'll see you soon when it comes to getting my bike, and I'll need to get some more riding practice in, don't I? Thanks for watching. Catch you later.